You know that feeling when you're scrolling through endless shuffleboard tables, trying to picture one in your game room, and you keep wondering if you'll end up with a piece of furniture that looks great but turns out to be a nightmare to fit, assemble, or actually play on? It's that moment where you're weighing the risk of dropping a good chunk of cash on something that might not live up to the hype versus the relief of finally finding a table that feels right for your space and your level of play. I get that, because I've been there sifting through pictures, reading specs, and trying to imagine the table in a room that already has a couch, a coffee table, and maybe a bar cart squeezed in. So before we dive into the details, just a quick heads up, link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Barrington 12ft Webster Shuffleboard table is marketed as a competition-size piece, which is a big deal if you've ever walked into a league night or watched a pro match and thought, I want that kind of authentic feel at home. The first thing I tried to picture was the playing surface. A 12-foot length gives you the full run-out distance you see in tournaments, so the pucks have that satisfying glide all the way to the far end, and the scoring zones line up exactly like the ones you see on TV. For anyone who's serious about sharpening their shot accuracy or wants to host a mini-tournament for friends, that length actually matters. You can't replicate that on a 10-foot tabletop without compromising on the physics of the game. Now, the real question for most buyers is, will this table fit in my room without turning the place into a cramped hallway? The table's footprint is roughly 12 feet long, plus the width of the playing surface and the side cabinets. If you've got a rectangular space that's at least 14 feet by 8 feet, you'll have enough room to swing a cue, move around the scoring ends, and still leave a clear path for traffic. A lot of people underestimate that you need at least a couple of feet of clearance on each side to avoid hitting walls or furniture when you're shooting a powerful puck. If your game room is more of a cozy den, you might end up feeling like you're playing on a stage rather than in a comfortable lounge, and that could kill the vibe. Assembly is another pain point that pops up in the forums. The Webster comes in multiple panels that bolt together, and while the instructions are fairly straightforward, you'll still need a few tools: a drill, a set of wrenches, and maybe a friend to hold the long sections while you secure the brackets. The biggest hidden trade-off here is time. You're looking at a few hours of work, especially if you're not used to assembling large furniture. The solid wood construction adds weight, which is great for stability during play, but it also makes the pieces heftier to maneuver. If you're hoping to move the table around often or take it up a narrow staircase, you'll wish you had a dedicated spot from day one. One of the strengths that shows up when you actually sit down and start a game is the playing surface itself. Barrington uses a laminate finish over the hardwood that feels surprisingly smooth, and the pucks glide with that low-friction feel you expect from a competition-grade board. The surface is also designed to be level out of the box, so you won't have to spend an afternoon tweaking shims under the legs. For casual weekend play, that means you can just set it up and start scoring. If you're a frequent player, you'll notice that the surface holds up well against the little scuffs that happen when you mishoot a puck into the edge. The cabinets on either side are a practical addition. They give you a place to stash cue sticks, score sheets, and the extra set of pucks you always end up needing when a friend brings theirs. The doors close flush, so the table doesn't look like a half-finished piece of furniture. However, the storage isn't deep enough for bulkier accessories. Think a full rack of extra pucks or a large trophy case, and the interior shelves are a bit shallow. If you're planning to keep a lot of gear on hand, you might need an extra cabinet or a separate shelving unit. Where the Webster falls short is in the price-to-value balance for someone who isn't committed to shuffleboard as a regular hobby. At its current price point, you're paying for the solid wood construction, the competition-size length, and the built-in storage. If you only plan to play a few times a month with friends, a smaller, less expensive table could give you the same enjoyment without the space and assembly demands. In that sense, the Webster is best suited for households that already have a dedicated game room or for people who intend to use the table for regular league practice, family tournaments, or as a centerpiece for social.